ahead, okay? So the two perspectives are sort of on opposite ends, okay? One is environment, okay? The main idea being that the setting and the environmental factors, what's happening around you, stuff that's outside of your control, are more powerful than our individual choices and ethics, okay? And the thesis you would use for this, your main claim in your essay would be both Lord of the Flies and the analysis of the prisoner abuse in the torture question so show the ability of all humans to act violently and evilly given the right circumstances, or the right environment and circumstances. Okay? This one is on the opposite end of that spectrum. It's on the opposite end of that ideology. Personal responsibility. Okay? Mr. Haynes said that yesterday. This is like sort of like following orders, and this is personal responsibility. I really like that that analogy. Okay? And this one is saying that our individual morals and ethics guide our actions more than the things that are happening around us do. Okay? So the thesis for this would be the incidences of violence in Lord of the Flies and at Abu Ghraib, the prison, and the torture question, are not due to environmental factors. Individuals have the choice to commit violence or not, and they will depending on their ethics, regardless of what type of circumstances they are in. Okay? So this is saying that environment and the stuff around us guides our actions, and this is saying that our individual responsibility and ethics guide our actions. And what you need to do is decide which one of these you feel like you agree with more, and which one you think you can use examples from Lord of the Flies and from the documentary to back up, to support this main claim, right? So let's just pretend, for the purposes of discussion, that we're all taking this first one, this environmental one, all right? This first thesis. What would be some examples from Lord of the Flies, from the novel, that would support this conclusion? What are some examples that you could use in your essay? Yeah, Tatum?
When the boys are dancing, that's when they are dancing to the beast, and they see Simon, and they didn't mean to, but they killed him.
Good. So that scene where they're all dancing around the fire and the rules kind of just melt away and it becomes complete chaos. Simon comes in and they kill him, right? Good. What are some other examples? That's a really good one. Some other examples with the boys are violent.
They use the environment to kill Piggy.
When they throw rocks.
When they
Okay. So be careful not to say, okay, the environment. You think of environment like the natural world. The use of the word environment in this case just means what's around you, what people are doing around you, what's the structure of society, what if there is any at all. So the environment of this classroom is very structured, right? You sit in rows, you have to all look at me and listen to me, hopefully, right? Okay, and you don't look backwards, you don't look up. Well, maybe you do, but you're supposed to be looking forward. The environment of the island on Lord of the Flies is very, very chaotic. It starts being, they have rules, but then the rules kind of melt away and it starts to be chaotic. So that's what I mean by environment with that. Emily?
Seems like with both of them, they're all in the mindset where they're overly stressed. They just want to make whoever their high authority is happy. Like with the boys, he manipulated his tribe members.
Who did? Jack?
Did to make them do things. It was kind of like how the commanders in the torture profession got the military people to bring out letters. So it's kind of like if you're in a certain mindset, you'll do anything to make people happier.
Okay, good. So you're with that statement, you're kind of agreeing with this statement here, that Jack ordered the kids to do certain things, and so they did them. And General Miller and Donald Rumsfeld in the torture question ordered the soldiers and the commanders to do certain things, and so they did them. They didn't question it because someone with more authority was telling them to do that, right? So that's what you're saying essentially?
Which is why you should question
Some of them,
authority.
they knew what they were doing and they didn't want to, but it's like they were afraid of the consequences of what they did.
Mm-hmm.
Like they said, stand there and did scared of Roger. So
Right. They really didn't have a choice. Sam and Eric didn't, because they either had to join Jack's tribe, or they probably would have been killed or tortured more. Right. So that's a good that's an excellent example that sort of backs this up. Okay. Aaron, you mentioned Piggy's death. That's exactly right. And I really like what Emily said when she said that both situations, when the stress starts to build, that's when the violence starts to occur, especially in Lord of the Flies. You can kind of, with each death, you can kind of feel it coming, right? When the boys are dancing. And then when, in Piggy's death, could you kind of tell that something was about to happen in the book right before Piggy's death? You could kind of feel it. It was starting to escalate, right? So you could feel Piggy's down there, and Ralph and Jack are fighting, right, on the rock, and then Roger takes a spear, unleashes the rock, and kills Piggy. So it's like this build up, and it's very stressful, and people aren't really sure what's happening, and all of a sudden, Piggy's dead. Okay. Good. All right. So let's move on to this one. Let's say that we're all taking this perspective with the paper, the personal responsibility one. We're all saying that our individual morals guide our actions more than the things that are happening around us. What could we use from Lord of the Flies and the torture question to support this? What could we say? Even if you don't necessarily agree with this, I bet you could come up with something. If we were to take this perspective, if we were to say, use Lord of the Flies and the documentary to try and prove this statement, our individual morals guide our actions more than the things that are happening around us, what would we use from those examples to support that? Tatum?
Ralph and Jack are in the same situation. Ralph decides to be more calm and not like touch everything, and then Jack's like, let's kill the thing that seems like. So it's like, how to handle things.
Good. So you're comparing two different individuals that are in the exact same situation and how they are acting differently, Jack and Ralph. They do act very, very differently. Okay, good. What else? What about from the torture question? What could we say with this? I wish that Cassie or Desiree were here, because they have said things that make me think that they would agree with this. So Cassie said that your upbringing and what happened when you were a kid and what your parents taught you as a kid will guide your decisions. So, are you just stretching?
Oh, I was gonna.
Why don't you go ahead and jump in?
I think it's more personal responsibility to it, because I think there actually is a little bit of evil inside of everybody that's just waiting to come out. So, yeah, I think it's more personal responsibility, but it does matter with your upbringing and that.
So, yeah. So, for example, let's say that you had a really strong upbringing and your parents told you never do anything to other people that you wouldn't do to yourself, and you enlist in the army and you become a soldier at Abu Ghraib, and you are ordered to do these things. Do you do them or do you not?
Don't do them. Always question authority.
Okay. Mason?
Yeah, okay. The military is, I don't really know how strict the military is, but I bet it's very, very strict. So, if you bug this, I don't really know what happens in civil orders, but if you do,
You can get
Court-martial.
yeah, so it's not good. So I bet they really don't have a choice sometimes. Some of them may or may not have a choice.
Okay. Ashley?
Okay, like, everybody probably says, like, if you're, like, a soldier there and stuff, everybody's gonna be like, oh, no, I would never do that to people. But if you're actually there, like, okay, seeing what everybody else could do to that person, they can do to you. So I'm sure you'd probably just not want to, like, hurt yourself for this person that is supposedly a terrorist. So.
Yeah. And I agree with that. It is really easy to say that I would never do something like that, but if you've never been in that situation, it is really difficult to know. Yeah, Annika?